Hey everyone, and welcome to our virtual studio today for a very special edition of our LinkedIn Live. I'm joined today, as usual, with my good friend and business partner, Max.
Yeah, well, thanks for inviting me out, James. I know you do your best to keep me locked away, but thanks for bringing me out. And what a studio today. Look at this. This is amazing. I can't believe, you've gone and bought this massive studio, James.
Yeah, I know.
This is looking pretty good.
I know. It's been a good year for us, and, I've been investing heavily in our virtual studio. And, today we are going to be taking a journey, I think, into the future. And I think this is the big mission for today's LinkedIn Live, and we're going to be exploring what the future of LinkedIn is, and we're going to be looking at a specific time period into 2020 to 2030. Beyond 2030, obviously, who knows, but we have had a educated stab at giving you a real good insight into what the future looks like. So we're going to be going through that in terms of timelines. We have some really cool videos, and we have a load of other stuff which we're going to be showing you to give you some really cool advice as to what's going to happen. And you can, as always, ask questions whenever you want into the chat. We're here for an hour, so you can comment, ask anything you want, and we're going to dive into the future of LinkedIn.
Yeah, I mean, it's an incredibly exciting time, and I think for a lot of people out there, we're firm believers that actually you're still early. Like, LinkedIn is still early. We haven't even reached the peak of LinkedIn as a platform. It's one of the truly exciting social channels out there for me and James. And I think, if you look at the platform, the organic reach is absolutely incredible. You're seeing massive turbulence on channels like Twitter, pushback on channels like TikTok. But LinkedIn seems to be a safe place, for many brands. And the quality of data is absolutely amazing. And I think it is still early.
Yeah, absolutely. So how we're going to do is we're going to break down the predictions into three clear categories. So we're going to have the short-term predictions, which are predictions between now to 2024, the medium-term predictions, and then finally the long-term predictions as well. So we're going to be kind of mixing them up and giving you a breakdown into each kind of block of predictions. And these predictions have been made through our own research, through working directly with LinkedIn and Microsoft, and also just through our independent research, working on the client side of our customers and beyond. So let's kind of break into this first area of predictions in terms of growth. So moving beyond now into 2023 to 2024. So we're going to be moving towards a world in which there are 1.2 billion users of LinkedIn. And I think the point we wanted to get across was there's going to be a big change in how people are ultimately networking between a top-down centralized approach to a decentralized model of content production, which is really, I think, a big piece.
Yeah, and I think not only are the users going to increase in the short term, the actual amount of time people spend on the platform is going to increase. Because if you think about the evolution of LinkedIn, it began as a recruitment platform. I mean, people going on there to find jobs. It's pretty much just an online directory of CVs. That's how LinkedIn started. Yeah. But how the platform is changing, it's starting to become much more of a content hub. And although the users are going to grow, I would expect LinkedIn to change and the users to change and become much more focused on content. Obviously different to Instagram and TikTok. And I think with the potential fall of Twitter, maybe Elon Musk will bring it back. I know James over here is, he's pretty much written Twitter off. Haven't quite written it off yet, but LinkedIn definitely could take some of that professional audience from Twitter, the journalists and the people who actually went on there for good quality content and updates. They could potentially come over to LinkedIn, and LinkedIn are looking to have much more emphasis on content creators and to create good content. And James you're recently on the content creator program, so I don't know if there was any insights you wanted to share quickly from that program.
Yeah, so we just come off the LinkedIn Creator Accelerator program. It was a 6-week program. It was very exciting. And I think one of the big takeaways from that initial conversation were between now and the end of 2024, we're going to see continued investment into creators. And I think LinkedIn traditionally as a platform has been very shy in their creator community. They haven't been as supportive as other social media platforms have been in terms of that creator community. So I think that's one of the big things we're noticing is we're going to see a transition away from LinkedIn as a primarily a recruitment focused platform, much more towards a platform focused on content creation. They're actually investing millions of pounds into their creators, and they're doing different types of creative sprints across the world. Each region has different sprints, working with 100 to 150 creators to essentially give them the tools to start creating more content. So I think one of the big shifts as we're going to see is a move towards essentially LinkedIn becoming much more creative focused, which is really exciting, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And the brands that are going to excel on LinkedIn in B2B or B2C are the content creators. I mean, that is how brands are winning in this day and age. It's about content creation. I mean, you can see like B2C brands getting massive demand through channels like TikTok. Like, content is really moving the needle. And for B2B brands, content marketing is literally, it's the lifeblood of your business now. It used to be that you could, if you're a B2B business on LinkedIn, you could get away with not having great content, but that has changed. And LinkedIn recognized that. And in the short term, we're going to see a massive emphasis on content creation. The bar's going to get higher. That's why we're doing these LinkedIn lives today and trying to push the bar of what creative and what live is. And if you're a brand out there, you're still early. Like, that is the most exciting thing, is like the bar is still low. And if you can, first of all, understand and agree to the thesis that content marketing is key, LinkedIn's going to be the main place where business professionals digest content. And for your brand to excel, if you can become a content ninja, up your game, use LinkedIn Lives in the short term, we really think that's where it's going to go. And that brings us on to our next topic and the idea around decentralized content production. And we really believe we're moving away from a centralized content production to a more decentralized way of doing content. And James, I don't know if you want to break down what this, because I think you put it really nicely in the previous video of what decentralized content production actually means.
Yeah, so I think between now and the end of 2024, which is, only less than 2 years away, I think we're going to see a shift away from the traditional paradigm in which brands would used to operate, which is a centralized content repository, and essentially move towards a more decentralized content ecosystem. The reason why that is because the content demands which are being pressed on marketing teams across the world are so huge now that it is almost impossible for any one team to actually service demand, particularly when you look at micro communities and stuff like that. So you need to think about how your audience are becoming increasingly demanding for content which is very specific to them. So that being said, the only way to address this is through moving towards a decentralized content production ecosystem. So this is actually starting from the bottom up and actually having a system in place to enable your team, key individuals within your team, to start creating content. So this is a completely different way of working. It's a novel approach to content creation because it's, again, something which people have not traditionally done. Traditionally, teams and marketing teams have always focused on creating content in a centralized way and then distributing the content through centralized channels and then broadcasting that content out to your various different ecosystems. That's changing now, where through tools such as employee advocacy and social selling, you can actually utilize your people to start creating content and then distribute content across micro communities. And between now and the end of 2024, I think we're going to see more and more of this start to happen. And I think we're going to see more brands starting to take ownership over their micro communities and actually use key individuals within their team to start communicating those key topics and trends. And this is kind of backed up by LinkedIn themselves through investment in their creator program. They're continuing to expand that program. I was just at LinkedIn offices yesterday. I was, meeting the team there. The passion and the excitement they have for creators and creative in general is really, really exciting. They've brought in lots of talent from Google, from TikTok, from YouTube, and over the next 18 months, I think we're going to see a massive, massive increase in the general creative direction powered by this idea of decentralized content. And I think this moves to a point you made, Max, around, I think we spoke about this, when you first went into the world of work, which was coming a longer and longer time ago now, as we get older. Do you remember going into sales? Could you expand upon that idea, how content creation wasn't even a skill? And you said something very interesting around how times are changing now.
Yeah, I can definitely go into that. And remember, guys, this is live, so do feel free to drop your questions and comments into the live stream. We can discuss your questions live here as well. We want to hear from you about your views as well, what you think the short, the medium term, and the long term is of LinkedIn. But just to kind of build on James's point here is that I started my career in sales. I was and telemarketing. So my job coming out of university was I was sitting at a desk, smile and dial on the phones every single day. And social media actually wasn't not only was it not talked about, it was actually discouraged. You should be. It was all about phone time. In this day and age, sales, and marketing, they've become intertwined. And if you believe the thesis that success of businesses now is all about content marketing, it's all about share of voice, the modern sales rep, actually telemarketing isn't the most essential skill. It's now about creating content, being an influencer. And if you're trying to sell into large accounts, you're trying to get recognized in the industry, people do look at your followers, they do look at your content, and the game is changing. The younger sales reps coming into the industry, they're already used to using digital mediums. I mean, think about it. People are meeting their life partners on social media. People are going on Tinder and finding their wives, their husbands. And it's the same for business. Like the digital worlds are becoming the first places where interactions are happening, and people are looking people up. But it's surprising to see how many sales teams are just not getting it. They're relying on their old their old networks. They're still relying on traditional ways. But if you as a brand want to excel in the short term, understanding that content marketing is absolutely key, and then equipping your sales teams is definitely the way to go. And a lot of people get this. I think there's still a time when we started Social Tree, when people would actually turn around and say to us, "Our buyers aren't on social." That was a legit thing that people used to say. I have not heard that for a good couple of years now. And if people are saying that, they're really out of touch. You just got to look at the world that you live in. But the bar is getting higher, and that's why the level of content creation is having to increase.
And I think to that point, I think it's really important and I think it's going to become a thing. I think in the next sort of 18 months is that I think content production, content creation, and your ability to have a personal brand, I think is going to become a really important part of your job.
Yeah.
And I think that now into the next 18 months, I think we're going to see more and more people value your actual brand worth when you're going for jobs. So when you apply for jobs and you're in sales, for example, I think people will start thinking, going, hey, how many connections does this person have? How good is their content? I think they'll take that as a really strong, actionable choice on their content.
Yeah. I mean, just think about your own sphere. Like when you're going to like physical events and physical expos, do you think that they're increasing in popularity, decreasing, or staying the same? From our experience, the appetite for physical events is nowhere near what it used to be pre-pandemic. And we'll get into this later on in our long-term thesis. But if you believe that the world is moving to a more metaverse environment, it's actually just going to get more virtual. And then it's got to come back to the opportunity. Like we're still early here, guys. That is the real crux of it, is that we're still early. So many brands are just not getting this right. And in the short term, another thing that we really believe we're going to see a rise of is LinkedIn Lives and LinkedIn events. If you think about LinkedIn, they are so well placed to really take over the webinar and event space. Like if you're promoting a webinar and you're using, a webinar tool where you're hosting, you're probably on LinkedIn trying to get your attendees to go to a third-party webinar tool. LinkedIn have recognized that. They know that most people are marketing their webinars on LinkedIn. Therefore, they've created LinkedIn Live, where you can just do your events straight within LinkedIn. And this is still early days. It's still got a few years before it becomes mainstream. But I fully believe, and we'll talk about this a bit later on, I fully believe that LinkedIn will be the events platform of choice as we get deeper into into LinkedIn's journey. And we're seeing really amazing results from LinkedIn Lives at the moment. In fact, we have actually stopped doing webinars entirely.
Yeah.
Over here at Social Tree.
we've stopped them all. We've stopped webinars, and we just do LinkedIn Lives.
Yeah.
And I think that goes to the final point around the short terms. I think because of the quality of the data and the integrity and the depth of data which is available on LinkedIn, the audience quality, I think we have an amazing opportunity for people who are using LinkedIn a lot to actually utilize that sea of data and start to actually demonstrate and start to, I suppose, sweat the unique audience which LinkedIn has. And, when you look at the stats on, say, a LinkedIn Live, for example, and you compare the stats to, say, a YouTube video or anything like that, you can see just how much more engagement a LinkedIn post will get than other social channels. So it's really exciting. And I think LinkedIn, it's a blue ocean for engagement. And I think this is just going to start and move on as time goes on. And I think we kind of touched on that prediction from 23-24. I think when we move on to, if we try and move on to now the medium term, let's see if the medium term, if we have medium term, we don't have the medium term bullet points. So we'll have to discuss it candidly. When we move on to the medium term, in 2024 to 2027, I think we will see LinkedIn grow to 2 billion users. I think that's one of the main things. I think we're going to see a massive expansion into LinkedIn growing to 2 billion users. I think we will see a revenue stream opportunity beginning with the creator programs. And I think if you look at other channels at the moment, the creators on the platform, they tend to in YouTube, you can make a living out of being a influencer. I think we're going to see that in the medium term bear to fruition. I think in the medium term, we're going to see a whole new generation of influencers who actually make their whole careers just on LinkedIn, creating content.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, influencer marketing obviously exists on TikTok, it exists on Instagram, but not to the same extent on LinkedIn. But actually, I've seen some really great results when we've had like a customer referrals on LinkedIn, then we've actually had inbound inquiries from that individual's posts. And I think influencer marketing is still in its early days on LinkedIn. And when you see creators making much more of a noise and talking about the products, the brands that they work with, then I think that is, again, a massive something that could possibly happen in the medium term. And it's no one can predict exactly what's going to happen in the medium term, but you can see that influencer marketing on LinkedIn hasn't really taken off as yet. If content marketing becomes a much bigger thing, then it's only inevitable that influencer marketing as a strategy could really begin to take off. Because let's face it, guys, if you're on LinkedIn, the content, bar a few people, the content bar isn't amazing. But if they can get better quality content, better quality creators on the platform, which they're trying to do, their users go up. And if they can attract, younger demographics as well, a younger audience, I think you'll start to see the shift begin to take place. Yeah.
And I think that lends itself to LinkedIn changing fundamentally the longer term. We're talking about, 2024, 27, when you have 2 billion users, which I think by 2027, we should have 2 billion users, 25% of the global population. I think we're going to have a much more entrenched creator culture like YouTube. I think at the moment, because obviously LinkedIn is so small still relatively to other platforms, you don't have that same creator culture. But I think that's changing, and I think we're going to see that transform over the next sort of couple of years.
Well, I've seen it transform. Just obviously, I've been on LinkedIn almost every single day for the last 6 years, and I've seen it transform. I remember when they just started introducing video content, videos, infographics. Like for a long time, LinkedIn was just text based, and I've really seen it change. And I've seen in some areas it change for the worse, for sure. A lot of people saying, "Oh, LinkedIn is becoming like Facebook." I think it's in the minority. I don't think it has become exactly like Facebook. It depends who you follow. Maybe it's your network you need to kind of look at. But
you just had a question again. People tune in. You can ask us anything. Within reason.
Yeah. Or disagree.
You can complain and say, "What, you guys don't know what you're talking about. You're absolute idiots." We haven't had that comment yet. We had a question from someone, from Colin Howes, who asked a question around corporate management controlling the release of information on social media for fear of damaging their brand. What are your thoughts on this redriving down publications on LinkedIn to functional staff rather than sales and marketing.
Yeah. I mean, we've come across brands who that is an issue, but to be honest with you, they're the brands that are going to lose long term. I mean, if corporates think that they can win the war of attention by throttling their staff, by stopping posts coming out, I can guarantee you those same corporate companies are getting very little engagement on their posts. I have yet to see an example of where a corporate is stopping content posts and creating ultra viral posts. Eventually, they're going to lose out. They're going to lose share of voice. Every major brand in the world understands that content is absolutely key. And guess what? You have to let go of the ropes. So, unfortunately, if that is a company that you work in, you need to either change it or move to a winning side, because ultimately they're going to lose the war of attention over time. There's no way they can win that. And we've seen brands over time change. Like, remember we first started working with UBS, who were like ultra conservative. We have done work in the finance community where people are ultra scared of regulation, of what's going to happen if we get this post wrong. We've done work in pharma brands, but the leading brands in finance now have almost like 2 years, 3 years ago started to let go and start to have programs in place to free up their staff. And brands who are thinking like that, they're the losers in this new age.
Yeah, I agree. I think now, you hire people because you trust them.
Yeah.
You hire your team members because you trust them to do their job well. And I think a good employee advocacy program does need to have a policy in place, a set of, carrots and sticks to obviously help people understand what they can and can't say. But ultimately, your people, you can trust your people. We've been doing this for almost, 7 years now. Almost 7 years. And I've only had one incident in my whole career of a serious event where someone had, let's be honest, had some kind of a severe breakdown and started posting lots of stuff on LinkedIn, which was really inappropriate and horrible. That was the one incident we had, and that was resolved. But we haven't had anything else, and we've probably managed and helped to manage tens of thousands of people on LinkedIn. So I think the fear is much worse than the reality. Most people, when you train them, when you give them the right tools, when you give them the right infrastructure, they're going to be fine on LinkedIn. And I think there's kind of 3 components to this. So we follow a very simple process. People, processes, and technology, very standard digital transformation template. But people are obviously your advocates. How well are they trained? What are the content themes they're going to be exploring? How are you equipping them with the skills to start producing content? The next element is processes. So what processes do you have in place to actually make sure your advocacy program is successful? And the third is technology. And I'm sure you know this, Max, but most brands you work with, they have a technology tool, advocacy tool. But that's why people come to us. They go, well, we're not getting engagement because we have this tool and people just share the post. And the reason why is because everyone who is anyone now has a tool which allows you to share content. But if your people aren't trained on how to create content, then the content tool is not going to work. What happens is you have a whole, I call them zombie posting, because you have a whole culture where people are just sharing mindless content assets, and it gets no engagement, does it?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, if you fast forward where we are in 20, 30 years time, like the problem is with many organizations, there's a cultural shift. So people have come into those organizations, they're baby boomers, they're like in their late 40s, 50s, 60s. They've almost, come into the latter part of their career. They've never had to do social media before. They've got their relationships. They're going to be hard. It's going to be hard to change. And for those organizations where the skill set and the demographics and also just the mental attitude is really old school, so they're going to take longer to change. But they are open to disruption, because if you have like one of those organizations at the moment where your culture is like that, then you have a startup, maybe like if you work in finance, like a fintech, where people get it, they know that digital is key, they know content marketing is what moves the needle. They are going to come on with a different culture, with different values, and disrupt these bigger organizations. So there's going to be winners and losers. There's going to be disruption, and it's a cultural change as well. And there are ways to solve that, but for large organizations, it's tough. It is not easy.
There's a question from Dragomir. I hope I pronounced your name correctly. If I'm not, I apologize. My surname, no one can pronounce it correctly, so it really annoys me when they don't say it right. But I hope I pronounced your name right. He asked, hello guys, greetings from Bulgaria. Do you consider the chance that LinkedIn becomes a fully paid platform in the future?
Yeah. I think at the moment what LinkedIn has going for it is its organic reach. I mean, like if you are posting content, it's very easy, even with not many followers, to get 1,000, 10,000, 20,000, 100,000, million. The organic reach is far greater than other platforms. So at the moment, LinkedIn is doing really well from obviously their revenue models, premium service. You're upgrading to things like Sales Navigator, the premium editions, and also paid ads. I mean, people are running huge paid ad campaigns on LinkedIn because the quality of the data is really rich. To be honest with you, LinkedIn is almost kind of pay to play as is. Like if you want to get if you're a content producer, you can get great organic reach on content. But if you really want to unlock the power of LinkedIn to grow sales, grow revenues, you need Sales Navigator. It gives you the ability, the data and the insights you need to grow your LinkedIn. So I think they've got the mix really well at the moment in terms of their pay.
Yeah, so the freemium model is good. I think that the question is a bit deeper than that, in the sense of, I think we're going to LinkedIn, again, going back to just my own experiences on the Creator Accelerator program, I think the model in which LinkedIn are going to, I think, move towards is going to be a world in which creators are incentivized more, I think. And whether that's monetary, I don't know. But I think we're going to see a bigger creator economy emerge from LinkedIn. I think if you look at other social channels like Instagram and YouTube, for example, who actually monetize viewership for their audience, I don't know if we'll see that explicitly on LinkedIn, but I do think LinkedIn are going to look at their creators who are producing the best quality content for their audiences, and they're going to start to incentivize them to post more. I think to directly answer your point, Sales Navigator does give you a whole treasure trove of information which you don't get as a non-paying member, and I think it is actually worth its weight in gold. But I do think there'll always be a place for free users for LinkedIn, because not everyone who uses LinkedIn is going to want to pay for it. And there was just a quick comment actually, which I actually did agree and slight pushback on your point around, I suppose, age and digital skills. Some of the best people I've met on LinkedIn have been older. Actually, they haven't been actually millennials or Gen Z. They've been actually older, and I think that the value of older people posting, and I say older people who have more experience, is they actually have some really interesting perspectives to talk about. So in many ways, there's a contradiction, because the people that are actually slightly more experienced in their role actually have so many fascinating insights because they have loads of experience. So I think that it's not always as clear about age. I do think there's, of course, a population of people who are older who don't post, but I've met so many people who are older who have loads of digital skills and are really keen to post.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting one. I think that kind of correlation is slightly breaking down in many ways.
I would agree with that point, that if you actually look at the people who are getting the most engagement on LinkedIn, often they are the actual baby boomers. Elon Musk. Elon Musk isn't a young guy, but he's obviously, he's getting amazing results. And if you look at a lot of, we've done actually analysis through the tool, looking at who is the people who get the most engagement are often the demographics, baby boomers, late millennials. But overall, I do think demographics, probably if you look at the macro and the data, does play a part in it.
Yeah.
I think it does, but some of the best, but that doesn't mean that baby boomers cannot be the best performing people on there. Maybe I'm wrong.
No, who knows?
I don't know.
You probably are wrong.
Probably.
You probably are wrong.
Probably am wrong.
You're wrong. No, I completely agree. I think if you look at it like as a population, I absolutely agree. I think there's a curve, but you have some outliers who are performing better. And just a point before we go on to the next phase of medium term was Claudio. Hello, Claudio. Good for you to be on here. Claudio, long-term friend and fellow school goer. Is that what you call school goer? School peer?
Maybe the 1950s.
1950s, yeah.
School fellow.
He asked about the bot problem on LinkedIn and whether LinkedIn would get rid of bots. I'd say that actually LinkedIn has the least problem with bots, because Twitter has a massive problem with bots. Like, it's actually quite hard to create fake accounts on LinkedIn. Believe me, we have a lot of experience in this field. It's really hard to create fake accounts on LinkedIn, and they are actually quite strict. So I'd say that LinkedIn are actually doing a really good thing with bots. I don't know if there's actually a ton of bots on LinkedIn. I don't know.
I think that the problem with bots, and it ties into a bigger macro view of what's going on in AI and artificial intelligence. I actually think that in the future, like, bots are inevitable. Like, I honestly think you'll be talking to bots all the time. Like, whether it's like you're called up a call center and you're chatting to a bot, or there'll be just bots in daily lives. I think that like social media, obviously, LinkedIn does a great job of tackling the bots, but will we get to a future? And then we're talking about the medium and the future.
Yes.
Like in 2030, 2040, 2050. Could it be possible that it's indistinguishable between whether you're talking to a real human or a bot? I don't know.
Well, we have that very good segue, because I think if we now go on to medium term, we had one of the predictions about Mesh, and Mesh is a new ecosystem which teams are producing, Microsoft are producing, and Mesh is a really exciting piece of, I suppose, a push by LinkedIn to start to integrate teams and start to bring that kind of medium term integration into it. So I'm not sure if we can play a video of Microsoft Mesh. I think we can. Just get a thumbs up if we can from the production team. If not, so we're going to take a quick look at Mesh, and you can see here how Mesh is essentially in the short term bringing avatars to Teams, and we all use Teams. So I think this is really cool. This is the first kind of 3D-ification of Microsoft, and we are going to speak about soon about the metaverse in the super long term. But I think this is coming now. Like, this is not something which is happening like in the next few years. You're seeing this stuff happen now. You're seeing these avatars. Mesh has been launched. It's running in beta mode, so you can actually now create your own avatar, which is really cool. And you're going to see Teams meetings happen with your little avatar, and you can walk around. And for those of you that don't know, Teams, Microsoft, LinkedIn are all under the same banner. So I think we're going to see this integration, like a further integration between Office 365 and Microsoft Teams. So Office 365, Teams, I think it's all going to start to come together.
Yeah. There are real use cases for virtuality. So they've been used in training for a long time. So if you work, a lot of airline companies use VR to train staff, rather than getting them onto an aeroplane for the first time. VR has been used in like heavy machinery. It's been used in law enforcement. If you work for like a large firm of architects, you could imagine how virtual reality could be an absolutely important part to see projects in real time. If you work in, warehousing, for example, the ability to put a VR headset on and walk around a warehouse with internally, but also externally. If you're selling virtual spaces or virtual real estate, what if you could jump in with your clients through VR and actually take them through those virtual spaces? If you think about the medium term, and we probably are looking, medium term, that's where this is all going. Workplaces, we're all working in a remote culture now. We're all well, not all of us. Some people still working, faced in the office, or aren't working at home. But many organizations, including Microsoft, many tech companies, many fintechs, finance, they're all working like 2 or 3 days a week at home now, and this is where it is all going. It's all moving to avatars, and we think Microsoft is so well placed to actually excel in this space. They own Teams, they own LinkedIn, and you can fully imagine LinkedIn one day being its own metaverse platform. Microsoft have acquired a multiple metaverse projects, and that's where it's going to go.
And obviously, from Matt, he asked why bother with avatars when you have videos of real people on Teams. And I think it's a really good question, because I think what this is pointing to is a evolution from 2D networking to 3D networking. And this is obviously going into the medium term. It's not going to happen next year, but this is going to be a massive shift from, well, really to everything. I think we're still very, very early days, but avatars represent a move into 3D immersive networking. So, for example, LinkedIn at the moment is two-dimensional. You have your profile, you go online, you post. Who's to say, and this is happening, that in the future you will have environments where you can go into LinkedIn as an avatar and continue the same basic practices you're doing now, but in a 3D environment.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, like today it makes sense for us to do video because this is a 2D webinar.
Yeah.
And video will never die. Just like, you know, radio doesn't die. Like people still, you know, listening to the radios, people still advertising on the radio. TV hasn't died. This isn't about like things dying off. It's just about new channels emerging and competing for your time. But three-dimensional space, and the reason avatars are important is because if you want to, you know, if you sell three-dimensional products, let's say you're BMW and you're selling a fleet of cars to the police forces, for example, and you want to bring people in to train them or to see the cars and walk around the space, you do need avatars to bring people into these three-dimensional spaces. The technology's not there yet where you can bring lifelike video replicas into the spaces. In 10, 20, 30, 50 years, I think you could actually have basically video, you know, real life replicas of individuals. I personally don't ever think that will happen because I think people probably would still they'd want to be able to differentiate between what is real and what is not. And I think actually people would, in the end, prefer having an avatar as to hyper realistic. I personally would. Who knows? Maybe in the future people would want hyper realistic avatars. But I think, and that's what Mark Zuckerberg says is having, you know, more cartoony avatars, so you can tell that, you know, that you're in a different sort of environment.
Yeah, and I think that's, you know, one of the things around we're going to see that, you know, 24, 27, which is kind of, you know, a couple of years time, I think we're going to see a definite push into integration, a consolidation of Microsoft suite. And I think LinkedIn will become more a part of the Office 365 ecosystem. And I think that's going to have tangible changes to how we interact. And I think, you look at Outlook, for example, it's an email communications platform, right? You look at Teams, it's a instant messaging communications platform. LinkedIn is a social media platform. It's as clear as day that there's going to be, and there already is, because when you sign up for a live, for example, you get an Outlook notification pushing you to join. So this is only going to get more and more. So if you are thinking about the future, you have to think about LinkedIn as part of this broader Office ecosystem.
We think that LinkedIn is going to take over the webinar space. You know, like LinkedIn Lives, we think, and LinkedIn are going to take over the webinar space. Like if you want to go to a live, if you want to go to a webinar, or you want to go to a virtual kind of presentation, we believe LinkedIn will take that space. Going into the medium to long term, I actually think LinkedIn will take over the conference space, the event space. Like you could imagine going to LinkedIn and thinking, right, I want to go to a finance conference, in this finance conference, I'll just put my headset on, I'll jump into LinkedIn, and I'm going to meet hundreds of companies, hundreds of individuals. They could be in the UK, China, Spain. As the technology evolves, language barriers disappear. Like in real time, there is technology available today that you can speak in English and translate into Spanish. And yes, it's clunky, but that exists today. So I fully believe, like, and with ESG being a massive issue, like, are you really going to fly to Vegas, you know, in the middle of a desert as climate change accelerates to have massive conferences, or you're going to sit at home, have a cup of tea, and jump into the metaverse and achieve the same thing?
I think I do agree with that, but I think there is a value in face-to-face. I think that I think it's going to be like a pendulum where previously, you know, 10 years ago, 100% of B2B networking was done at conferences, right?
Yeah.
Now it's like, well, it's mostly done at conferences, but there is now an online component of LinkedIn. I think in the future, there'll still be the normal events, but there's going to be a much bigger emphasis on digital networking around it. So I feel like the pendulum is going to swing, but it's not going to swing so you don't go to any events. And I think the events you go to, I think people will have local networking, and or people will have a few marquee events they attend every year, and then they'll do it. But I absolutely agree with you. There's going to be much more digital infrastructure around virtual network. I mean, even yesterday at the creator graduation, there was a face-to-face component, but there was also like 50 or 60 people tuning in virtually on screens and stuff. So it was quite a cool experience.
Again, I don't think this is about any channel dying. It's not like, oh, you know, now metaverse is here, social media dies. Now metaverse is here, radio dies. I read a book the other day.
Wow,
books are still coming. I enjoy reading books. Like, do you know what? A book, I enjoy a physical book almost probably more than an actual tablet. It's not about anything disappearing. It's just about changing habits. And but I do foresee a metaverse environment really taking off. And it's not just me. It's it's the largest companies in the world banking on this and investing in this space, and it makes sense to me.
Yeah, and I think that's an interesting way we can start to wrap up. I think we're going to move towards a world in which there's going to be as we move towards 2030 particularly, I think we're going to move towards a world where networking is going to become instantaneous and seamless with physical networking. I think we're going to see that happen. I think in 8 years' time, we're going to have, as you spoke about, advanced digital ecosystems. We're going to have a usage on LinkedIn, which is probably going to be surpassing 3 to 4 billion people. I think 4 billion is a conservative run. And I think we're going to have particularly with the way the world's changing with ESG, I completely agree with you. I think there's going to become more and more pressure as we go into the 2030s for brands to have a really clear ESG message. Yeah. And if you're spending half your year flying around the world doing expensive conferences when there are alternative systems which may not be as good as physically meeting someone, I agree, but you achieve broadly the same goal. I think people are going to be doing more and more of that, definitely. Because we have to start to. It's literally a global precedent. We must reduce our emissions.
Yeah. So global conferences are not good for the environment. Like all the wastage, all the stands. You've got thousands of people flying out in airplanes, staying in hotels. Is it really that important? For the environment, they are fun, and you know what, I could definitely see in the long term people really valuing face to face more, that human connection. As people now are valuing more wellness and cutting back on their lifestyles, eating more vegan. Eventually, I think people will realize just how important the human aspect is. But these large conferences, I'm just not sure they make sense.
I think that's going to definitely be the thing, and I think that's where we're going to be long-term future. I think we're going to see a 3D advertisation of ourselves. We're going to see LinkedIn expand, and I think LinkedIn dominate as a global B2B platform. And I think it's going to be really exciting, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And and also you have to wait and see how blockchain feeds into everything as well. What will blockchain do to channels like LinkedIn? You can see things like Instagram, who are starting to release NFTs on their platform, trying out in the US. You could definitely then see, TikTok following suit and then creating things like NFTs. Is there a world in the medium to long term where LinkedIn integrate into the blockchain? Could you have NFTs? Maybe that solves some of the bot challenges. Maybe you register your
digital
accounts,
identities,
digital identity on the blockchain. Maybe that's part of the solution. Maybe they start to reward creators with coins. Look at Reddit. Well, on Reddit, if you are creating moons. On Reddit, you can get Reddit coins in exchange.
Reddit moons, they're called.
Oh, Reddit
moons. They're called moons.
Yeah. Maybe blockchain starts to play off into LinkedIn as well. I think blockchain will slowly move into all aspects of our lives.
I think blockchain has a massive part to play in that digital identity space as well. You can be able to verify, is this person a human? And I think it all goes back down to, I think, the database of LinkedIn is so valuable.
Yeah.
It has the highest average net worth per user of any other social media platform. And we are big fans of LinkedIn, and we've actually, from our side, we've developed tools and technologies to help people navigate around LinkedIn. And one tool we've created is really cool. It will allow you to actually track your profile and also monitor the public profile activities of your competitors. So, if you're on this stream, you can actually use this tool today for 30 days. It's linked influence, soon changing our name, but watch this space. So we'll be able to actually give you some really interesting stats on your own profile. We'll put a link. Can we put a link in the chat, James? Is there a way to put a link in the chat for people to kind of sign up? It's really cool. You can track your profile, you can track your team, and you can get some analytics. It's all public profile data as well, so it's nothing private. So it's all public data. just tracking your content. So you can stick in your URL there, have a little go. And there is actually one more comment around, or a couple of comments around behaviors. I think a part and comment was the need for human contact and touch. I think it is important. I think living in a world where we don't see anyone and just live in like a weird bubble of virtual reality, I do think that could cause a lot of problems. So I do think the parting message is, we're not saying don't go out and network, just stay at home and just live in the metaverse, but I think it's just going to take a bit of time off that.
There will be huge problems with this. Just because the metaverse comes doesn't mean it's all going to be rosy.
Good,
can actually things could get a lot darker before they get better. I mean, if everyone's living through avatars and you get used to your avatar, and look at the meta avatars, they're all young, they're all clean. There's no facial people already have problems with self-image and stuff. The metaverse may accelerate that.
Yeah.
I could go on for hours about all the potential problems that the metaverse could potentially bring, but same as social media, just because there's issues doesn't mean it's not going to happen. And the use cases are just so strong. Like I said, VR and virtuality are used in many industries and have been used well before the metaverse, and companies can get a lot of value from it. But we're going to, as a society, have to navigate through the pitfalls. And I do hope for my, I've got kids, and I don't want, I actually do think sometimes of my daughter or my son, growing up and are living in virtual reality headsets, scared that I don't want them to be living their lives through virtual reality. I want them to actually have a balanced lifestyle, go out into nature, have that human connection, but use virtual reality to help, have a better human experience, to collaborate more. Or augmented reality. And we've got to get the balance right. I really hope that with Instagram, we didn't get the balance right. When Instagram first came out, it was unregulated. People were letting their kids on it. It led to massive mental health issues. Only now are we recognizing the problems of Instagram. And we should be forward thinking, recognize the problems of the metaverse and address it now and roll it out with that in mind, because we don't want another mental health crisis that Instagram had when it was unregulated.
Yeah. And that's it's a omnivorous end to this stream.
As always, if you hang out me and James, it always gets in the end very dark and sad.
But it's true. I agree with you completely.
There are issues.
It's an issue. Yeah,
it's not all rosy.
It's not all sunshine and rainbows, is it? But I do think that we have to be careful of this. But I think LinkedIn, as a final point, it's a great space. It is a relatively safe space. It's well moderated. And I think it's exciting. I think we should all be excited about the future.
Yeah.
And I know we are excited about it.
Absolutely. And it's still early. That is the key takeaway, is that people may think, LinkedIn, it's been around for ages. It's still early days. The bar is so low. People are still flocking to the platform. Usage is increasing. The bar of content is getting higher. LinkedIn Lives are incredibly exciting. And the brands who get it now, and who get the mindset of it's all about content creation, it's all about content marketing, man.
And we're working it out. Well. I think that's the thing. Every live we do, we're working things out, We're learning things new. So just get comfortable with LinkedIn, experiment, work on your own, or work with a partner for a while to learn. And we're using experts for live, and we are live experts ourselves. So definitely don't be afraid to try things out. Have some fun with your creative as well. Have some fun, try and be bold, just post something, try an idea, try a video, try these tools out, and I'm looking forward to seeing how everyone gets on. And this is our final live for the year, and we've done many lives this year, hasn't it? It's been a busy year of lives. We've done about 10 lives this year. We've done loads. So it's been a fantastic year. I hope you all have a wonderful Christmas, those who are tuning in. Fantastic new year. And we'll see you next year for, I think, a really packed, exciting catalogue of events. And that's just a picture of me. Me by LinkedIn. There I am, looking slightly terrified there, but that was LinkedIn yesterday. So it was a really good time. And
that's the problem with doing lives with James. It always end on a selfie of James, but at least I just got invited out today. So
at least you build him out.
At least I was invited. But but thanks a lot, guys, for tuning in. We'll be back live next year. Hopefully by then England will be World Cup winners. Who knows? We may
100%.
We'll be back as world champions.
That's the prediction we're going to make.
That's our final prediction.
England to win the World Cup.
Yeah.
Thanks, everyone.